I'm making this video because I can't remain silent. Israel has been racked by massive protest. On one hand, thank God, we have a democracy, and that includes free speech, the right to protest. However, these protests on a practical level have gone too far. They've shut down major highways, been destructive. The soldiers and the military reservists, most notably pilots, have refused to show up for duty. They've shut down health services, the airport. This has all gone very far indeed. But it has deep spiritual implications. Judaism, we believe in a two-part Messiah. There's Mashiach ben Yosef, the Messiah from the house of Joseph, and Mashiach ben David, the Messiah from the house of David. The Mashiach ben Yosef precedes the Mashiach ben David. The Mashiach ben Yosef is a practical, mundane process of the ingathering of the exiles, the blossoming of the desert, the building up of the land. Most people would agree that we're well into that stage of the Messiah. Mashiach ben David is a miraculous process focused on an individual that is resurrecting the dynasty of King David, building the third temple, fighting the war against Amalek. That's the second and final stage of Messiah. And Rav Kook, Rav Avram Cohen Cook, the first Ashkenazi rabbi of the British Mandate, believed that secular Zionism was Mashiach ben Yosef, that it was the first stage of this Messiah. And there were lots of reasons to believe that, and it justified the secular Zionism, which is why when people say, oh, it's a secular state, I say no. Joseph, he looked like Pharaoh, which is why his brothers did not recognize him. And that's what the secular Zionists were. But that stage of Messiah is typified or personified by King Saul, who was indeed king of Israel. And the king of Israel, King Saul, he never dealt with anything having to do with the tabernacle, which was in shambles at the time and not in Shiloh. And he never dealt with establishing the temple. And he took into his household King David, who was a hero and who was idealistic. And King David was beginning the very glimmerings of the temple. He wanted to build the temple. He longed to build the temple. He established Jerusalem. And what happened was, King Saul, at that point, turned on his hero, on his friend, on his musician. He turned on him. And he tried to kill him. And we're seeing that right now, where secular Zionism had nothing to do with the Torah aspect of Israel. And they were willing to adopt their smaller brother, the younger brother, the religious. So long as the religious didn't call for power or didn't attract too much attention. And then when the secular state went in for no reason and brutally uprooted not only a community and entire communities and a section of the country that was an idealistic religious stronghold. They destroyed Gush Katif. Make no mistake, that was brutal. It was violence. The left wing, if it does not get what it wants idealistically, will resort to violence and not even notice that they used violence. and never admit that they used violence. And that's when it began. When the secular Zionists, King Saul, turned on the religious Zionists, King David. And what we're seeing now in these protests is we just had an election. And now, for the first time in Israeli history, we have a religious government. A government that is majority representing religious values. And a majority wants to turn Israel into a Jewish state. Not exclusively Jewish, not ethnically cleansed, nothing like that. But a real democratic Jewish state. And what we had was a judicial system that in the 90s, 1995, a Chief Justice Barak destroyed it and turned it into an intentionally politicized judicial system that could absolutely and did absolutely trump the government at every turn. Demographically, Israel is a majority right wing. It could arguably be said that Israel is demographically majority religious. That's a point of contention right now. It really depends how you define religious. But we are absolutely demographically majority right wing. The majority of Israelis see Israel as the Jewish state. Partially, of course, because the left wing put all their eggs in the basket of Land for Peace. And we saw where that went, which was nowhere. So what we have is King Saul, i.e. the left wing, i.e. the secular anti-religious, who do not want Israel to be a Jewish state, in their bastion of Tel Aviv, saying, ignoring, rejecting their own democracy, absolutely rejecting Israel as a Jewish state. And they're doing it in the most undemocratic way possible. And that's what we have happening. Make no mistake, this is King Saul preventing the Mashiach ben David, the Messiah from the house of David. They're doing it by brutality. They're doing it by the rule of an elitist minority over the will of the people. That's what we have. I woke up this morning, and the proof that it's not about the judicial reforms like they say is Netanyahu froze the judicial reforms, and they're still continuing the protests. They don't want to stop the judicial protests, the judicial reforms. They stopped the judicial reforms. What they want is they want Netanyahu out of the government. I don't care about Netanyahu, but we had elections. We had a lot of elections. And what the people said plainly and clearly is we don't want a kind of right-wing, kind of religious government that brings in the Arabs and brings in the left wing. We don't want Bennett. And we certainly don't want Lapid, who has a tendency not to tell the truth and who did things that were horrible for Israel and is anti-religious. Make no mistake, he is anti-religious. What they want, and to be honest, it's not Netanyahu, because Netanyahu is not right-wing and he's not religious. But he formed a coalition with the right-wing religious. This is a battle against Israel's identity as a Jewish state. Israel's future as a light unto the nations. That's what this is about. And I'm waking up today is Wednesday. I think today, the day after Netanyahu froze the reforms and the protests continue. I think that this is a pivotal day. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. I also want to point out that America is integrally invested in this. There's a battle going on in America as well, where the Democrats have become clearly the party of anti-Israel, openly anti-Israel. The Democrats have always meddled in Israel's elections. And there's a thing you should look into called V15, which was the U.S. State Department under Obama, funding an effort that was explicitly and solely anti-Netanyahu. Biden has yet to invite Netanyahu to the White House. America is trying to open up an embassy to the Palestinians in Jerusalem. They don't want Jerusalem to be a house of prayer for all nations, because the Muslims, the Palestinians, do not want any other religion in Jerusalem. That's what they're doing on the Temple Mount. And Biden is supporting this. Make no mistake, America, if a minority left-wing elite can usurp the military, can usurp all the major institutions, including the judicial and the media and education, and overthrow a democratic election in Israel, make no mistake, that's America's future. Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about this. If the light unto the nations is extinguished and we become a secular nation, a nation that rejects Torah Judaism, then Israel will not become pluralist, open to every religion. It will become closed to every faith in the world. There will be no house of prayer for all nations, and America will follow. I'm sorry to be so doom and gloom on the morning. All I can say is I have faith that the prophecies will come true, that we will have very soon indeed a house of prayer for all nations, that Jerusalem will once again be a glorious center for the nations to come up and praise Hashem. God willing soon. I have faith in God. I have faith in the God of Israel. I have faith in Israel. I have faith in the Jews. When we came out of Egypt, there were dissents. There were protests. Korach said, oh no, we're all the same. He was the first pluralist socialist. And Hashem stepped in. I'm waiting for Hashem to step in here too. Not in any violent way for anyone, God forbid. But I have total faith that this will work out well in the end. Thank you very much. Blessings from Israel to all of you.